السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله نور السماوات والأرض، مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح. المصباح في زجاجة، الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نار، نور على نور، يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال. رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة يخافون يوما تتقلب فيه القلوب والأبصار. ليجزيهم الله أحسن ما عملوا ويزيدهم من فضله، والله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب. والذين كفروا أعمالهم كسراب بقيعة يحسبه الظمآن ماء حتى إذا جاءه لم يجده شيئا ووجد الله عنده فوفاه حسابه، والله سريع الحساب. أو كظلمات في بحر لجي يغشاه موج من فوقه سحاب، ظلمات بعضها فوق بعض إذا أخرج يده لم يكد يراها، ومن لم يجعل الله له نورا فما له من نور. ألم تر أن الله يسبح له من في السماوات والأرض والطير صافات، كل قد علم صلاته وتسبيحه، والله عليم بما يفعلون. ولله ملك السماوات والأرض وإلى الله المصير. ألم تر أن الله يزجي سحابا ثم يؤلف بينه ثم يجعله ركاما فترى الودق يخرج من خلاله وينزل من السماء من جبال فيها من برد فيصيب به من يشاء ويصرفه عن من يشاء يكاد سنا برقه يذهب بالأبصار يقلب الله الليل والنهار إن في ذلك لعبرة لأولي الأبصار والله خلق كل دابة من ماء فمنهم من يمشي على بطنه فمنهم من يمشي على بطنه ومنهم من يمشي على رجلين ومنهم من يمشي على أربع يخلق الله ما يشاء إن الله على كل شيء قدير لقد أنزلنا آيات مبينات والله يهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم ويقولون آمنا بالله وبالرسول وأطعنا ثم يتولى فريق منهم من بعد ذلك وما أولئك بالمؤمنين وإذا دعوا إلى الله ورسوله ليحكم بينهم إذا فريق منهم معرضون وإن يكن لهم الحق يأتوا إليه مذعنين أفي قلوبهم مرض أم ارتابوا أم يخافون أن يحيف الله عليهم ورسوله بل أولئك هم الظالمون إنما كان قول المؤمنين إذا دعوا إلى الله ورسوله ليحكم بينهم أن يقولوا سمعنا وأطعنا وأولئك هم المفلحون ومن يطع الله ورسوله ويخشى الله ويتقه فأولئك هم الفائزون وأقسموا بالله جهد أيمانهم لئن أمرتهم ليخرجن قل لا تقسموا طاعة معروفة إن الله خبير بما تعملون قل أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول فإن تولوا فإنما عليه ما حمل وعليكم ما حملتم فإن تولوا فإنما عليه ما حمل وعليكم ما حملتم وإن تطيعوه تهتدوا وما على الرسول إلا البلاغ المبين وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات ليستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم وليمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم وليبدلنهم من بعد خوفهم أمنا يعبدونني لا يشركون بي شيئا ومن كفر بعد ذلك فأولئك هم الفاسقون. وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأطيعوا الرسول لعلكم ترحمون. Fellow, we'll go back to ayah 35, I believe, um, to translate the ayats. 35, yes. These are some verses from chapter 24, Surah An-Nur. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. His light is like a niche, niche in which there is a lamp. The lamp is in a crystal. The crystal is like a shining star, lit from the oil of a blessed olive tree, located neither to the east nor the west, whose oil would almost glow even without being touched by fire. Light upon light, Allah guides whoever He wills to His light, and Allah sets forth parables for humanity, for Allah has perfect knowledge of all things. That light shines through houses of worship, which Allah has ordered to be raised, and where His name is mentioned, He is glorified there morning and evening. By men who are not distracted either by buying or selling from Allah's remembrance, or performing prayer, or paying alms tax, they fear a day when hearts and eyes will tremble, hoping that Allah may reward them according to the best of their deeds and increase them out of His grace, and Allah provides for whoever He wills without limit. As for the disbelievers, their deeds are like a mirage in a desert, which the thirsty perceive as water, but when they approach it, they find it to be nothing. Instead, they find Allah where in the hereafter, ready to settle their account, and Allah is swift in reckoning. Or their deeds are like the darkness in a deep sea, covered by waves upon waves, topped by dark clouds, darkness upon darkness. If one stretches out their hand, they can hardly see it, and whoever Allah does not bless with light will have no light. Do you not see that Allah is glorified by all those in the heavens and the earth, even the birds as they soar? Each instinctively knows their manner of prayer and glorification, and Allah has perfect knowledge of all they do. And to Allah alone belongs the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, and to Allah is the final return. Do you not see that Allah gently drives the clouds, then joins them together, piling upon them into masses, from which you see raindrops come forth? And He sends down from the sky mountains of clouds, loaded with hail, pouring it on whoever He wills, and averting it from whoever He wills. The flash of the clouds, lightning nearly takes away eyesight. Allah alternates the day and night. Surely in this is a lesson for people of insights. And Allah has created from water every living creature. Some of them crawl on their bellies, some walk on two legs, and some walk on four. Allah creates whatever He wills. Surely Allah is most capable of everything. We have indeed sent down revelations clarifying the truth, but Allah only guides whoever He wills to the straight path. And the hypocrites say, "We believe in Allah and the Messenger, and we obey." Then a group of them turns away soon after that. These are not true believers. And as soon as they are called to Allah and His Messenger, so He may judge between them, a group of them turns away. But if the truth is in their favor, they come to Him, fully submitting. Is there a sickness in their hearts, or are they in doubt, or do they fear that Allah and His Messenger will be unjust to them? In fact, it is they who are the true wrongdoers. The only response of the true believers when they are called to Allah and His messengers so He may judge between them is to say, "We hear and we obey." It is they who will truly succeed. And for whoever obeys Allah and His messenger and fears Allah and is mindful of Him, then it is they who will truly triumph. They swear by Allah their most solemn oaths that if you, O Prophet, were to command them, they would certainly march forth in Allah's cause. Say, you do not have to swear, your obedience is well known. Surely Allah is all aware of what you do. Say, obey Allah and obey the Messenger, but if you turn away, then He is only responsible for His duty, and you are responsible for yours. And if you obey Him, you will be rightly guided. The Messenger's duty is only to deliver the message clearly. Allah has promised those of you who believe and do good that He will certainly make them successors in the land, as He did with those before them, and will surely establish for them their faith which He has chosen for them, and will indeed change their fear into security, provided that they worship me, associating nothing with me. But whoever disbelieves after this promise, it is they who will be the rebellious. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. One more verse, I believe. Moreover, establish prayer, pay alms tax, and obey the messenger so you may be shown mercy. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. May Allah Ta'ala grant us tawfiq to recite the Quran, implement it in our lives. Wa akhiru da'wan, alhamdulillah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم نويت تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير ونفع وانتفاع إفادة استفادة وحتى تمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى هدى ودلالة على خير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقرب ثوابه سبحانه وتعالى اللهم علمنا مما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما تعلم وينفعنا بما تعلم وينفعنا بما تعلمنا اللهم ينفعنا بما تعلم وعلمنا اللهم علمنا بما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا من فضلك علما وتعليما انك على كل شيء قدير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Excuse me. Jazakallahu khairan for the presentation of the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us all to be of the Ahl Quran, of the people of the Quran. Inshallah, we're going to try to continue in our look at some of the selections from this work from Sidi Abdullah bin Mubarak, rahimahullah ta'ala, in relation to softening of the heart. And so to a statement that he mentioned from Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, and he reports that this was mentioned in the Sunan of Imam Abu Dawood in his Kitab al-Zuhd, in his section on renunciation, and also he mentions that Bukhari has translated a portion of this as a note under the heading of high expectations. And so the statement from Ali, it reads as follows in terms of the Arabic: إنما أخشى عليكم اثنين طول الأمل واتباع الهوى فإن طول الأمل ينسي الآخرة وإن تبع الهوى يصد عن الحق وإن تديا قد انتحلت مدبرة والآخرة مقبلة ولكل واحدة منهما بنون فكونوا من أبناء الآخرة ولا تكونوا من أبناء الدنيا فإن اليوم عمل ولا حساب وغدا حساب ولا عمل. SubhanAllah. And so Ali ibn Abi Talib, he mentions in this, he says, إنما أخشى عليكم اثنين. And so he says that I only fear two things for you. طول الأمل, high expectations, واتباع الهوى, and the pursuing of desires, the following of your desires. And he says, فَإِنَّ طُولَ الْأَمَلِ, and as for long expectations, it makes one forgetful of the next world. يُنْسَى آخِرَةً. وَإِنَّ تَبَعَ الْهَوَى, and as for following of desires, يَصُدُّ عَنْ الْحَقِّ, that it bars one from the truth. And so this is a situation which Ali ibn Abi Talib, he's mentioning, at least in the beginning of this, he's mentioning the reality of our situation in this world and what he fears for us. And that the first thing that he says that he fears for us is high expectations. And what can be inferred from this is the aspect of our expectation of the things that we're going to accomplish and the things that we're going to do in this world. And we make them so long and we make them so lavish and we make them so important such that it blocks us from the akhirah, that we forget about the akhirah. And why this is so crucial and so important to try to head off is, as he mentions further in his statement, he says, this world is retreating and the next world is advancing. So meaning, if you were to look at it from the standpoint of, for example, if this was a person, this portion of my hand represented a person, then the akhirah is coming towards the person and it's getting closer and closer, while the world is behind the person, going further and further away. And so when we have long expectations, what it does is that if we put too much stake in those expectations, meaning that we plan so much in advance and we make all of these different plots and schemes purely focus on this life, then if we do that in negation of the next life, then we're misplacing our priorities. Because it's not to say that we shouldn't make plans in this world. Even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had mentioned that, you live in this world as if you're going to live forever, in the sense that you make your provisions for this world, such that you can be in this world comfortably. However, it should not be such a situation, because in that same vein, the Prophet ﷺ said, but you should also prepare for the akhirah as if you're going to die tomorrow. So you have this balance, so that you're not overly concerned with this world in disregard for the akhirah, but at the same time, you're not so concerned with the akhirah to the point that you don't take care of the things that you need to take care of in this world. And so when you have long expectations, you have these long things that you're trying to accomplish, this is when it can become distracting, meaning that you're spending all this time just focusing on this world, that you have nothing prepared for the akhirah. And this is one of the main things that keeps a person in a state of dislike of meeting their Lord. Because for most of us, if not all of us, we naturally have a fear of death. This is something that the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum have pointed out as well, is that people just naturally have a fear of death in and of itself. However, what we want to come to the point to as believers is that even with that fear of death, is not a situation where we're not prepared for it, because the lack of preparing for death is going to be something that's going to increase us in our fear. The ideal situation is that we come to the point like the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, such that we are in a situation that we eventually come to the point where death is something that could even be something we look forward to. That if you look at the examples of some of the companions, such as Bilal bin Rabah or Fatima az-Zahra, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or Umar Khattab, or others of the great Sahaba, is that they had a different understanding of death. And part of that reason is that they were making plans for this world, in the sense of they were doing things in this world that were necessary for them to do. However, their primary focus was the akhirah. And because their primary focus was the akhirah, what happened was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the dunya and the akhirah. As one of my teachers would say, is that if you make Allah all of your care, He will take care of all of your cares. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ultimately the one that is providing for us. And so it's not to say that we don't, again, take the necessary means. As the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned that the believer should be more or less like the bird. Is that the bird, it wakes up in the morning, but then it wakes up in the morning hungry, but then it goes out and it seeks the provisions of its Lord throughout the earth, and then it comes back satiated. So we should seek out the necessary means that we need for this world, but we know that our ultimate trust, our ultimate reliance is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it's Allah who's actually providing for us, and we're just utilizing the means that we have. that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already provided for us. And so Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, in this particular situation, he's warning us about having too long of hopes and expectations, is that we should constantly try to remind ourselves that death is, essentially right around the corner. And similarly, in another hadith of the Prophet Muhammad himself, he mentions that هذا ابن آدم وهذا أجله ووضع يده عند قفاه ثم بسط يده فقال ثم أجله ثم أجله وثم أمله. That the Messenger of Allah said, this is man and this is death. And he placed his hand on his neck and then he stretched his arm out and said, his death is here, meaning at his neck, and his expectations are here, meaning stretching out his hands. So again, this aspect of the closeness of death that each of us is in. If we think about it, even if we were to ask the oldest person that's with us online today, does it really feel that they lived that long? For most of them, probably the answer would be no. That even for me, it just seems funny to me sometimes when I speak or I remember about something and I would say that, oh, that happened 20 years ago. That 20 years ago this happened. Like I was reflecting to myself that this year marks 20 years since I graduated from high school. It just sounds funny to me. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. Like, really, has it been 20 years since I graduated from high school? But the reality of the situation is that, yes, it's been 20 years. So that means what? That I'm 20 years closer to my death. I'm 20 years closer to meeting my Lord. And so the question becomes, what have I prepared for it? That in those 20 years, have I done what I need to do to prepare for my grave? And this is something the Prophet Muhammad he encouraged us to, always be in preparation for the time that we're going to meet our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, Ali ibn Abi Talib, he's mentioning this because, again, the more that we focus on this world, the more it distracts us from the next world. And so we want to make sure that we at least have a sound balance such that we're constantly in a state of preparing for the next world, but at the same time, we take the provisions that we need to just be in a state of comfortableness in this world. So as one of my teachers would mention, he mentioned that you should have enough of the dunya such that you're not overly concerned with it, meaning you don't have too much or too little. So you don't have so much that you're worried about, oh, what happens if, the market crashes and, I lose all of my millions, or, what happens if so-and-so tries to take my fortune, or, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, not to have so little that, you're just constantly worried about where you're getting your next meal and how you're going to pay your next bill and so on and so forth. Just seek to have enough so that you can be comfortable. So this way you can have a comfortable situation that you can focus your primary attention to worshiping your Lord, because this is ultimately what you've been created for. And then he mentions, rahimahullah radiallahu anhu, each of them has followers. So be the followers of the next world and do not be the followers of this world. And so he's mentioning that there are people, and really what he says in the Arabic of the hadith, he says, وَقَدِرْتَحَاتْ مُتْبِرَةً وَالْآخِرَةُ مُقْبِلَةٌ وَلِكُلِّ وَاحِدَةٍ مِنْهُمَا بَنُونَ. So really you can actually translate this as that each of them have their children. And so the translation here mentions followers, but you can actually translate it as well as being children. And this is, you can arguably say, is the more literal translation, that each of them have their children, that the dunya has its children and the akhirah has its children. And so the question becomes, which are we? Are we the children of the dunya? Or are we the children of the akhirah? So if we're trying to be the children of the, if we are in a case where we're the children of the dunya, that means that we're just going to continuously chase after the dunya. We're just going to keep following the dunya. We're going to keep, trying to please the dunya and try to, be a part of the dunya. But if we're children of the akhirah, then that means we're going to be children of that which is higher, that which is, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى, that the akhirah is better and more permanent. Or you can say better and everlasting. Because the akhirah does not cease to exist. Whereas the dunya, no matter how well that you plan, no matter how successful you are, no matter how much you amass with this dunya, all of it is going to come to an end. All of it is going to come to ruin. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says as well in the Quran, كُلَّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ, all of it is, everyone upon it is perishing. And so that means that at the end of the day, anything that we prepare for the dunya anyway is ultimately going to go by the wayside. Ultimately it's going to be given to someone else. It's going to go into our inheritors, or someone else is going to purchase it, or it's going to be found by someone else, or whatever the case may be. Or it's going to be something that we're just going to use up till its completion, and then it's going to go its way. So none of it is permanent. Whereas the akhirah, that is abqa, that is permanent. It never ceases. And so it behooves us to pay more attention to that which is everlasting, that which is permanent, versus that which is just temporary. One of the ways that one of my teachers just recently had put it in something that he read is that he mentioned the likeness of the person who is overly concerned with the dunya in negation of the akhirah is like someone who is getting ready to be attacked by a lion. A lion is rushing towards them to attack them, but then they get distracted by a mosquito. And because of their busyness with the mosquito, trying to worry about getting the mosquito away from them, they forget about the lion that's coming to attack them. And so, what actually makes more sense? Are you going to worry yourself about a mosquito when a lion is getting ready to attack you? And so, they mention this as, the case of the person who disregards the akhirah, concentrating solely on this dunya. It's like being attacked by a lion while you're worried about, swatting away a mosquito. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet has mentioned is that the world, this worldly life, this dunya, is not worth the wing of a gnat in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This worldly life is insignificant. The main significance just has to do with our relation to the akhirah, meaning how do we live this life of this dunya such that it will allow us to arrive to the akhirah safely. That's the main purpose of this life. The main purpose of this life is not to become rich. The main purpose of this life is not to have a large family. The main purpose of this life is not to amass any aspect of this dunya. The main purpose of this life, an ta'budullah, is to worship Allah. That is the main purpose of this life. And if we make that our focus, as we mentioned before, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of the dunya for us. And again, this was the success of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. So, having that focus, that drive to be for the akhirah, such that we are children of the akhirah and not necessarily children of the dunya. So we take from the dunya what we need, but we don't get overly concerned with the dunya such that it distracts us, especially when we're saying it completely distracts us from the akhirah. And so he mentions what next? He says, today there is action without reckoning, and tomorrow there will be reckoning without action. So again, the nature of this world is that it has an effect upon our akhirah. And so we want to make sure that our amal, our actions are that which is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that when we arrive to the akhirah, that our reckoning will be light and that our good deeds will be heavy. So we can fall under the category of when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ ثَقَلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. That, whoever's وَأَمَّا ثَقَلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ, whoever makes their scales heavy, whoever heavies their scales, وَأَمَّا مَنْ ثَقَلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ, that he is going to be in a pleased state. Well, he says the opposite about those. فَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ, but whoever makes his scales light, فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ, then his mother is going to be the hawiyah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions right after, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا هَاوِيَةٌ. So he says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا هِيَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what is going to make you know what that is? نَارٌ حَامِيَةٌ, that is a blazing fire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even in the Quran, is mentioning to us that our primary works, the primary things that we should be focused on, that which we plan the most for, should be the akhirah. So that what? ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُ, that our scales can be heavy on that day. And this is one of the tricks of the shaitan that the ulama, they mention that, a person should not allow themselves to be tricked into falling into. And that is the aspect of allowing the shaitan to trick one into just busying themselves with useless things, those things that are just merely permissible, those things that are just merely mubah. Because what? Because the shaitan, he's a cunning individual. He's a very intelligent individual. He knows that for many people, they're not necessarily going to fall into the haram or shirk. That's, he's not necessarily going to get them to commit one of the kaba'ir in terms of the haram. And he knows that he's not necessarily going to get them to be able to engage in shirk, the aspect of associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In particular, we're talking about major shirk. However, what he will do sometimes is that if he can't get you to do the haram, if he can't get you to commit shirk, and even if he can't get you to do the makruh, what he'll sometimes do is that he'll just try to busy you with the permissible. He'll try to busy you with that which is just permissible. But why does he do that? He does that because that still accomplishes his overall goal. Because if I busy myself with the permissible, what is the ruling on that which is permissible? That which is permissible from a fiqh perspective, from a legal perspective, it means those things that I'm neither rewarded nor am I punished for. So there's no reward for it and there's no punishment for it. So why is the shaitan so concerned about doing this to the believer then? Because the shaitan, he understands that if he can busy us with the permissible, where there's no reward and there's no punishment for it, then that means what? That means our time is being taken up and we're not getting anything towards our akhirah. So that means that that's just time that's been wasted. As one of my teachers had mentioned, he said that time is not something you kill, time is something that you bring life to. That you want to try to maximize the benefit of your time. And this is why the ulama, they speak so heavily about the aspect of intention. They say that, the ideal situation for the believer is that anything that they do, they should try to have an intention behind it. And that intention, they should try to turn it into an act of worship, an act of ibadah. So that, for example, when I eat, I don't just eat for the mere purpose of eating or the mere enjoyment of the food, but I eat with the intention, I'm strengthening my body so that I can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then my eating, and every time, in every moment that I spend eating becomes an act of worship. That when I play with my children, or I play with my spouse, or I'm doing something entertaining, that I have a righteous intention. So if I'm playing with my children, I make the intention that I'm strengthening the bonds of family and bringing a lightness to my family, such that inshallah it becomes an act of worship. Because this is something that is praiseworthy. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he first arrived to Medina, what did he say? Afshu salam, spread peace. Wat'u ta'am, ta'am, and feed people. Wasil arham, and keep up ties of kinship. So he mentioned all of these different things. And one of them he mentioned was to keep up ties of kinship. And the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned the blessing of keeping up ties of kinship. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions the importance of keeping up ties of kinship. So again, if I make my intention that when I'm playing with my children, that I'm doing it to try to strengthen our relationship, to try to strengthen this tie of kinship and try to keep it, then inshallah, even in those moments where I'm just playing with my children, inshallah, it can become an act of worship. and so on and so forth, such that everything that we're doing, inshallah, it can become something towards our akhirah, so that inshallah we can fall into the category of those who thaqalat mawazinu, that their scales are going to be heavy on that day, and that we're not going to be of those who fall by the wayside and khaffat mawazinu, and that our scales are going to be light on that day. The last thing that we want to do is come on the day of judgment and have our scales of deeds be light. Because as Ali ibn Abi Talib says, he says, tomorrow there'll be reckoning without action. Because at the time that we have to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our reckoning, that's it. We can't say, Ya Rab, send us back and we'll do more good works. We can't say, Ya Rab, send us back and we won't waste our time. We can't say, Ya Rab, send us back and we won't, worry so much about the dunya and we'll focus more on the akhirah. We only get this one shot. That's the only important thing about this dunya, is that you only get one shot at it. Because this dunya is going to affect the akhirah. So again, we want to make ourselves children of the akhirah, so that when we live our life in this dunya, we're living it for the sake of Allah and Allah alone. Again, it's not to say that we can't enjoy some aspects of the dunya. But even when we try to enjoy some aspects of the dunya, make your intention Allah. That anything that Allah has given me that I enjoy, thank Allah. Say Alhamdulillah. Make righteous intentions for those things that you want to accomplish in this dunya. If you're receiving an education, make your intention, Ya Allah, I'm receiving this education so that inshallah I can be a means of benefit for the Muslim community, that I can fulfill a fard kifaya, I can fulfill a communal obligation, whether that's in terms if I'm trying to be a medical doctor, or if I'm trying to be a lawyer, engineer, a teacher, whatever the case may be. Make an intention so that it turns into something for the akhirah. In those times that we may be doing something for the sake of, winding down or something like that. Even if I'm taking a nap, make your intention, Ya Allah, I'm taking this nap as a following of the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad by taking a kaylula, by taking a mid-afternoon nap. I know in these months of Ramadan, oftentimes we, are not getting as much sleep as we normally do. And so, we'll be tired more in the day. So if we're able to take a nap, like for example, on the weekends when we're not working, we may sleep a little bit longer, make the intention, I'm taking a qaylula, following the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, so I can strengthen my body, can continue to worship. And as one person had said to me not too long ago, I believe it was last week, he was saying that a person that doesn't take a nap during the day is as if they're saying with their lisan al-hal, with their spiritual tongue, that they're saying that I intend not to get up for tahajjud. And so we talked before about the aspect of getting up for tahajjud. So even if we're going to take a nap because of the tiredness that we feel, during this time in Ramadan, make that intention that I'm taking this nap to strengthen my body so that I can get up for tahajjud, so that I can pray the salat al-tarawih, so that I can make sure that I'm getting up for the suhoor to fulfill the sunnah and so on and so forth. So again, turn your dunya into akhirah, so that you become a child of the akhirah and not be a child of the dunya. And with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all things can be made easy. And so, this is something that I felt, I actually, when I was trying to prepare for these sessions for this Ramadan, this was one that I had put a special asterisk besides and had highlighted especially because I felt that this was something that really kind of gives us an insight into really how we should be looking at our lives in terms of making our focus our meeting with our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, not at expense of this world, but in relation to what is important, in relation to our deen, our dunya, and our akhirah. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us children of the akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who make their scales heavy on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon us, and may He accept all of our acts of ibadah during this month and after this month. May He allow us to increase in goodness in this month and after this month. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for in all the things that we may fall short in. ربنا تقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم وتوب علينا انك انت التواب الرحيم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الابرار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد النبي الامي وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم واخر دعوانا ان الحمد لله رب العالمين.